I'm just going to say a statement. Tell me the validity of this. A very dangerous occupation would be to be a character in a Jack Kilbourne novel. Would that be kind of on par with what you're doing?
That's a pretty good observation. The characters that the readers grow to love during the course of the narrative usually don't fare too well in a Jack Kilbourne book.
Harsh. Now, aside from Afraid, what other projects are you representing, or do you have in progress right now?
Well, I also write under the name J.A. Conrath. That's Jakonrath. You can find J.A. at the jackkilbourne.com website. I write a series about a police officer named Jack Daniels. So all the books are named after drinks. You're looking at Whiskey Sour, Bloody Mary, Rusty Nail, Dirty Martini, Fuzzy Navel. The new one is called Cherry Bomb. Eventually I'm going to have to write one called 12-Step Program, I think.
I think you're probably going to need a 12-step program just to recover from the Afraid book, from how much you're almost warning us against from reading it. But then again, you're going to have to know that curiosity killed the cat. Will satisfaction bring it back?
You will, if you have the guts, enjoy this book. But I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think you have the guts.
That almost seems like a direct challenge to all of our viewers at UFrag right now. Aside from that book and the books that you mentioned, the alcohol-themed crime novels, are there any other projects or websites that you wanted to mention that you're working on right now that you're particularly wanting to represent?
Well, what's fun about a comic book convention for a thriller writer, and I consider myself a thriller writer, is you get to meet probably some of the coolest fans in the history of fandom. I mean, I met Lou Ferrigno. I think I could take him. You know, he's still got the guns, but I think I could take him. Met a lot of really cool people in costumes who I think they know it's a convention. Do they know it's a convention?
I don't know. I did see a Walter Kovacs. I really think he does believe that the end is nigh.
But this is a wonderful place for me to be as a thriller writer, because thriller writing conventions are, pretty laid back. There's a lot of drinking, of course, but it doesn't get really nearly as wild as what I've seen here, being here for only a couple of hours. So if there is anybody watching who is a writer, not necessarily a comic book writer, but a thriller writer, a fiction writer, I encourage you to check out my website. Go to jackkilbourne.com, click on my blog, and I've got about 1 million words of how to get published, how to find an agent, how to whip your manuscript into shape, how to actually succeed in this horrible business called publishing, and all that stuff is free.
Now, I had one last personal question. I've been trying to write myself, and I have a great idea for the story, but without saying it, I cannot seem to write it any more than a short story. If you had to give a tip for someone to get over the terrible monster that is called writer's block, what would that one piece of sound advice be?
Okay, that's a good question. Every narrative, every movie, every comic book, every commercial, television commercial, every poem is all about conflict. And conflict is all about creating a character and giving the character goals, and then refusing to let that character reach those goals. So if you're stuck in a story, all you have to do is think, what does the character want? And then take that away from them. Introduce something that's the absolute worst thing that could possibly happen to that character, and then the story writes itself.
Well, like I said before, a very harsh writer and a dangerous occupation would be to be a Jack Kilbourne character. Well, that's sound advice from a man who likes to publish books that will leave people unsound mentally. Thank you once again for joining us here at the UFragTV podcast booth at Chicago Comic-Con.
Here we are live once again at Chicago Comic-Con with UFragTV.com and Pwnecast.com, and we are interviewing Rob here, who is a comic book auctioneer, and hopefully he won't be talking really fast.
I promise not to go a little bit too fast on you here, but we've got a sale coming up in November based in St. Louis. You don't have to actually attend to participate. Bidding will be held online through iCollector.com, as well as possibly through ProxyBid. We're still in talks with them. But basically, the important thing to note is that the collection of comics that we're going to be selling is roughly 2,000 books. They're all fresh to the market. We're sending off the entirety of the collection later on this month, later on in August, down to the CGC's offices in Florida to have them verified, looked through, and we're actually expecting a pedigree. So it's pretty noteworthy. The stuff hasn't been touched for 30 years. The stuff is in incredibly good condition. We have a lot of really noteworthy key issues, and honestly, that's pretty much it.
So you say they've been sitting in a guy's basement for 30 years. Do we have a mother to thank for that?
Actually, the situation was kind of like this. Normally, our company handles estate auctions, right? You know, grandma moves into the retirement community, we come in and help out. Well, in this case, the son collected all the comic books, and then he passed away. And he left everything to his mom. And then about a year later, she passed away and left everything to her nephew. Her nephew didn't live in town. He hired a lawyer to help him liquidate the estate. The lawyer, as it turns out, we'd worked with before. He knew about us.
Comic book geek?
Not him so much, but me. What happened was the lawyer knew about our company. He referenced us because he knew we could help out with the contents of the estate. We started going through the stuff to set up the auction, and we found about 20 boxes of comic books in the basement, all just virtually untouched for about 30 years. And they kind of turned it over to me and let me do my magic, and so we've got the auction coming up.
And so you find comic books that haven't been touched in like 30 years, and are you going like, holy crap, we got an Amazing Comics #1 here?
We have. When I started looking through the collection and found the copy of Amazing Fantasy #15 that we've got, which I don't know if you can see it too well when I found that comic, I about crapped my pants.
Hold it up again and we'll zoom in on it for you.
These are the actual scans on the paper here.
So as you can see, all those pictures right there are pictures of the actual comic books that are going to be sold at the auction.
The only other thing I really have to say is if you're interested in finding out more, go to www.moundcityauctions.com. You can sign up for our email list. There's a landing page on that site specifically dedicated to the comic books. It's going to have links to scans of them all, as well as a list. Now, we're not done uploading them, so just bear with us. More will be showing up, and once we get the CGC gradings, that information will also be made available.
All right, and if I can ask one final question, this is big, giant pile of comic books that hasn't been touched in 30 years. What would you say, from what you've seen so far, is the most valuable comic book in that collection?
Easily, the star, the belle of the ball, is going to be that Amazing Fantasy #15.
All right, and why is it so worthwhile?
Well, it's the first appearance of Spider-Man, as everybody probably already knows, but if I had to give it a condition myself, and once again, I'm not a professional comic book grader, so take this at grain of salt, but I would say that it's going to grade above a 9.0. The thing is just beautiful.
And what do you think it will bring in an auction?
I've seen them sell for upwards of $100,000 before. Honestly, it's impossible for me to say.
Okay, well, we thank you very much for your time, and good luck with the auction, and we will continue to broadcast live here at San Diego Comic-Con. Thank you for your time. All right, did I say San Diego? I meant Chicago. Chicago Comic-Con. Thank you. All right, I think it's a good time to go and do the Metropolis people.
Do the what? Yeah, we have an energy
Energy
people.
brew.
Right over. Tom's gonna do it unless you want to. The hot chick.
Oh, no problem.
I told him. Thank you. Could, but whatever.
I said San Diego.
Huh?
I said San Diego. I said Chicago like 3 times in the night.